Hey, welcome back to the Uncle You Needed. Let's talk some movies today. So here are 10 films that I enjoy. You might want to check out. I'm sure you've heard of some of these. No particular order, but just the ones that I came up with that made this list. And first off, I'm going to do this again because obviously there are more that can be on here. But here are 10 that came to my mind. What it took to make this list. One, I would watch it again. And then two, if the clips from these films come up on TikTok or YouTube Shorts or any of the short form platforms, I tend to watch those. So that was kind of the criteria for getting in. So number one, no particular order. 2007, No Country for Old Men. Great book, great film. This is by the Coen brothers. Some things about this. It's the general plot is that this guy finds money from a drug deal gone bad. It's set in 1980. So this obviously was before, cell phones and all this kind of stuff. Takes the money, and that act of taking the money really sets off this chain of events. Josh Brolin is in it. He plays, one of the main characters, the guy that actually finds the money. Interesting point about that. I found out later he was probably a little bit too old for the character when this was filmed, but he does such a good job in it that it was never anything that came to mind, even though I'd seen it multiple times until I'd read that later on somewhere. Tommy Lee Jones plays a sheriff trying to basically help Brolin's character, come clean of this, but also realize, and he's battling some of his own demons along the way from the past. He's an older, man at this point. And one of the themes in here is him being up against, forces as an adversary that he knows that he cannot overcome. That's one of the main themes of the book and also the film. Javier Bardem, who is the face we see in the background there, plays just this ominous character named Anton Chigurh. He represents the villain, represents kind of that wave of just, evil that Jones knows that he can't beat. And so, anyway, the plot of this is kind of Bardem tracking down Brolin, but also, antagonizing people along the way. Just a really evil character, but a great book, great film. Definitely check that one out. Also, another interesting point about that film has no soundtrack. I read that later on too. There's no soundtrack in that movie. It's just, like when you hear things out in the desert, it's just the wind. But there's no soundtrack in the film. I thought that was pretty cool. There Will Be Blood, also 2007. Some of this is actually filmed in the same area as No Country for Old Men, West Texas, a place called Marfa. Anyway, Daniel Day-Lewis plays this guy that I believe it's based on Upton Sinclair's book Oil. But he plays this guy that is self-made man. Opening scenes, you see him out in the desert somewhere, I believe mining for silver. But he, of course, ends up finding oil, and then it kind of tracks him along, as he goes down this path until he's eventually an older man with, considerable wealth. Once again, kind of a slow burn film, but yet at the same time, a decent amount of action in there. And you didn't want to come across Daniel Plainview, the character that Daniel Day-Lewis was playing. Definitely worth a shot. Give that one a read or a watch. Casino, 1995. If you've seen the film Goodfellas or heard of it, both De Niro and Joe Pesci were in that as well. I prefer this one. I just like the setting better. I think it's really cool in Vegas. One of the things that was really interesting to me is that this story is basically historical fact. It's basically true. De Niro's character is a guy named Ace Rothstein, and I believe in real life his name was Lefty Rosenthal. But you can Google that name. But all the stuff that goes on in there, as far as the convincing Rosenthal to run the casino and the things he does, and not having a gaming license, and then eventually bigger mob outfits putting the hit out on Pesci, and actually they tried to kill Rosenthal too, but he managed to survive. Anyway, all that's true. So it just adds another layer that this is actually true stuff that we're seeing here. Usually in Hollywood it's so embellished. This really wasn't. It was basically what happened. Awesome film. Give it a shot. This is a guilty pleasure. Roadhouse, 1989, Patrick Swayze. The premise of this is that Swayze's character is brought in as a cooler. He's there's this really rough bar. I think it's supposed to be set in Missouri. That looks like it was one of those, where Southern California stands in for everything. There's this bar owner buys a bar, but there's a lot of rough crowd in there. So the fighting gets in the way of the drinking and people spending money. So he brings in this guy. They call him a cooler. He's essentially a bouncer. to kind of get the riffraff out and let things function. Anyway, this one of the things about this is that actually Sam Elliott is in it too. You see Swayze doing what he does, which is come in and kind of, train some bar staff and some bouncers and kind of how to fight, handle situations and calm things down. I guess one thing that just stands in mind is this is probably not the greatest film, but it's always fun to watch. A couple of years later, Swayze was in Ghost, which ended up making this dude like the biggest star in the world. So it's funny to think about just how big this guy was at one point. He was just in it seemed like everything, and just a huge star. But anyway, like I said, not the greatest film, but it's a lot of fun to watch. Also, 1989 of Major League. There was a time in life where I had this entire thing memorized when I was 11, 12 years old, watching this with friends. It's just it's about a baseball team that's purposely put together to be terrible, but they do the improbable and actually end up winning. So it's fun to watch. The characters they assembled. The has-beens and a bunch of guys that probably never were worth much. It's just really cool. I watched this actually probably within the last 6 months. Hadn't seen it in years, and still remember the song from the opening credits. So give that a shot. Happy Gilmore, 1996. This to me is Sandler's funniest movie. I'm sure you'll probably at least heard of it, but if you haven't, go watch this one. Every time I hear the song in the closing credits is "Tuesday's Gone" by Leonard Skinner. Every time I hear that song, I think of this movie. But it's this guy that's wants to be a hockey player, isn't going to happen because he just doesn't have the talent. But for whatever reason, from that perspective, that background, he's able to go out and just kill a golf ball, and ends up doing well on the tour. So this is a funny to watch. Carl Weathers is in this too, and they have some other pretty good actors that give him some credence. But anyway, it's always fun to watch that one. Pulp Fiction, 94. I was a young pup when I actually saw this in the theater. I was in high school, and I remember it was one of those things where if anything had been made before, it was one of those where it probably wasn't for like years, because they're the big blockbusters and everything were popular in Hollywood. But this one, I read that this is actually like a 2.5 hour runtime. And I thought that to me actually stood out because I don't remember it feeling that long ever. I've seen this one multiple times. But of course, this was Quentin Tarantino's breakout film. I think he'd written others before, but this one he wrote and directed, made Samuel L. Jackson a star. John Travolta was basically a has-been when this thing came out, and he went way back into the A-list, all that kind of stuff. So anyway, awesome movie. Way too much to go into as far as plot. Just one of those you need to go watch. Open Range, 2003. This has got Kevin Costner and Robert Duvall in it. It's a Western, and this was one of those that really, I just don't remember hearing much about it when it came out. To me, it's just underrated movie. The premise of it is that Duvall and Costner run cattle, but they do it back in the days of where there was still open range. There was open land. You could just go do this. But some guy near this town that, one of these guys, the villain that runs the town, basically thinks it's his land. And so he tries to run these guys off. And so, kind of what you see here, like in this clip, this shot of the movie poster is Kevin Costner waiting for the guys from that work for the kind of evil land baron to come and attack. So it's a good movie. Definitely an underrated Western. It's kind of cheated on this one. So Predator is the 1987 film that Schwarzenegger was in. If you haven't heard of it, it's about an alien that comes down and hunts humans, is essentially what's going on there. And he's hunting for trophies, and you can watch that. It takes place in Central America when it's really hot. One of the key themes of this is that the predator sees an infrared. So if you're in a place where it's really, really hot, it kind of helps him to see more. And then I'm cheating on this because in 2022, this one came out on Hulu called Prey. It's in the same series, same type of alien comes, but it's set in maybe 1800, and the predator is going up against a Native American tribe. I think it's Comanche. And that's probably the best film I've seen in that franchise since the original one came out. There have been some others that were just really terrible. but both of these are good and watchable to go back and see. So give those a shot. Last one I got on here is Shawshank Redemption. Once again, slow burn film, but I always end up watching it if I see it or see clips. This was written by Stephen King, which is of course known for horror, but he actually wrote this film, or wrote the book that the film is based on. Premise of it is Tim Robbins' character Andy Dufresne is sent to prison wrongly, and it's just about everything that goes on in there, which is of course is going to include a lot of bad versus a lot of good, and of course the kind of spoiling the end. He ends up breaking out, but he's in there for a long time. Like I said, for something that he didn't do. Morgan Freeman is his main pal in there, and then he actually ends up getting paroled late in the film when he's an old man, and they end up meeting up. So awesome movie. One of the things about that I kind of like is he's telling this story, I think, in a letter at the very end to Tim Robbins. This is to Morgan Freeman, and he's recounting this memory of when he was younger. Anyway, like one quick piece. The reason he's sent to prison is because he's wrongly accused of murdering his wife, who was having an affair with a golf pro. Okay. And so anyway, that's what gets him sent to jail. But at the very end of the film, he's writing this letter to Morgan Freeman about, where he can find him if he wants to when he gets paroled. And he's recounting this memory of a good memory that he had of he and his wife back when they were younger. And I kind of like that because even though, he went through all this bad, she obviously did some things, terrible to him, and she ends up getting killed by someone else anyway. But through all that bad, he still has that good memory of something that they did together, and thought that was, a nice piece. Something about the, relating back to the redemption of this guy, or in many ways is a redemption scene. But anyway, key theme of that. Anyway, go watch any of those. If you have some thoughts on films that you would go back and, for you are kind of on your top 10 list, drop them below. And definitely I'll do one of these again because there are too many, but when let's start with 10. Have an awesome day. Thanks.